Who wants it?
No, this is you. It's you. It's the last one. Last official.
No, there's one more.
Yeah, I know, but like last official.
You can say it on this one.
Alright, fine.
Oh, so he said that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Sue's right.
Okay. Thank you. I think we're all set. Everybody here? Councilman Pentelow, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. And Sue, would you do us the honor of roll call?
Councillor Carbone?
Here?
Councillor Clancy? Here. Councillor Forrest? Councillor Hill?
Here.
Councillor Lesser?
Here.
Councillor O'Connor?
Here.
Councillor Pentelow?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Mazzarella?
Here.
Mayor Rell?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. We have the chief here. We do not have the swearing in or the pinning of the new officer, but congratulations on that hire.
Thank you.
Very good to see some of these open positions getting filled. I know we've got a couple in the queue coming out of the academy, as well as a couple more retirements in the queue as well. So
That we do.
I think we're going to break even at some point pretty soon. So.
I hope so.
Yep. Well, I will turn it over to you and your lieutenants and captain to go over this month's report.
I think they decided they didn't want to do it, so they just let me do it today. I'll get them, don't worry about it.
You guys had a busy weekend.
Oh, we don't say that word.
Yep. All good, though. Very good. Well, at least I know the good stuff. There's been a couple, I know, but...
We don't say the Q word, we don't say anything. We like it just the way it is.
No, thank you for everything at the road race, the Scarecrows on Main, as well as the Cove Carnival. You guys were exemplary public servants for us, and unbelievable job. Everybody was very happy with everything that went on.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, so let us begin. This is our bi-monthly August-September activity report for the Wethersfield Police Department 2023. We'll start out with the demographics of the police department. Again, we're currently budgeted for 51. We're at 45, or -6. Frank Benvenuto, who was supposed to be here tonight to be sworn in, had another issue to deal with, so we're going to push that out to the next council meeting. We also have a recent hire that will be starting November 13th. Lee Tan, the lateral from New Hampshire State Police Department up there, but he was born and raised and lived in Wethersfield his whole life. So he's coming back home. We're going to swear him in on the 13th, and that'll be our first Vietnamese officer to the police department, going on with the lines of diversity. As you can see, the breakup male to female, 38 to 7 or 84 to 16. We're still working on our 30 to 30 initiative, 30% female by 2030, and the additional breakdowns by race. But the big one on the bottom there, the PD has now flipped from 51% laterals to 49% entry level. So that change has occurred. We're getting more experienced officers to join the ranks of the Wethersfield Police Department, and it's also cost intuitive, effective, I should say. Here's our cost for service for the 2-month period, 6,184 calls for service. I know that's a big number. Everybody gets excited about it. But if you look at the left-hand column there, 2,718 of them are patrol checks. Now, these are all our calls. Calls initiated by the public, calls initiated by the patrol officers out on the road. So 2,718 calls right there, right off the top. That's our officers checking the businesses, checking the residents, making sure our town's safe in certain areas. And you can see the totals, you keep going down. 869 traffic stops, 189 selective enforcement. So that top group there, that's top heavy, if you take out a couple of them, let's see, like well-being check, if you take out that 101, it still comes out to 4,331, which is a remainder of 1,853, which shows our cost of service potentially coming from the public and not self-initiated. And you can see where it is all over town, where we're going. We are all over the town, blanking it. Any questions on that slide? You can ask me as we go. Our next slide here. We have our motor vehicle accidents for the month of August and September. We're at 106. Time of day is 4 p.m. and the 16% or average age of the individuals involved in the accident are 26 to 35 years of age. So they're not our younger, they're not our older, right in the middle of individuals who are getting in accidents. And where they normally occur, as usual, Berlin Turnpike, Silas, Deane, and Maple Street. Now, looking at that previous slide where I said the average age of individuals getting in accidents is 26 to 35, well, we move on to our next slide, which is motor vehicle enforcement for the 2-month period. Now, keep that age group in mind and the location of where these accidents are occurring. So if you look at it, 806 motor vehicle stops were made during the course of that 2-month period. 26.2%, or 49, is between the age of 26 and 35. So that age group in our town, for some reason, not only is getting in accidents, but are drawing more attention to themselves by our officers. That's who we're taking enforcement against, and they're still getting in accidents, believe it or not. So that's just something to think about. And where our enforcement occurs, again, you look at it, we're on Jordan, we're on Silas, Deane, we're on the Berlin Turnpike, we're on Wells Road. You can see 806 stops right there, and the enforcement action, taken on those, you have 14,301. If you see on the side there, I don't know if you can read that very well, but that's fair to obey a stop sign. Individuals running a stop sign, traveling too fast for conditions, 14,218A, operating a motor vehicle while using a handheld mobile device, 269A, 299, running a red light, 219, speeding, and 236. So this is what we're stopping cars for. There's the age group, and there's the area where we're doing it. So we're out there, we're active. Yes, Mayor.
No, I don't mean to cut you off. I was just going to give you for verbal warnings, it looks like maybe 508, 506 of the 806. For the verbal warnings, do they get, a free pass on the first one, and this, do you guys log? I think I've asked this before. You log the verbal warning, so if they are that age group or that person or whoever, this is their second or third time, they're no longer getting a verbal warning?
No, they're not. We always say, enforcement action doesn't have to be punitive. It can be educational, and that's what we try to do. We're stopping them. They're still being entered in the system, so the next time they're stopped, the next time they're ran, they'll show that they were stopped by our police department for that violation and issued a verbal warning. And it's progressive.
It just seems like 500 out of 800 are verbal warnings. It's like it's your first time. I mean, are you catching a lot of folks who've had a verbal warning in the past, and this is now your second time doing pretty much the same, right on red, or failure to stop at a stop sign, or cell phone use?
That I don't know. It's up to the officer on the street when they run them.
They're just habitual for whatever reason, or some of them. But
I hope they're not. I hope they learn the lesson the first time. But when it becomes punitive, then they start learning a lesson.
Right.
Then we get the appeals. Then we go to the court, and then we tie up the magistrates with these motor vehicle hearings because someone wants to run a stop sign 3 times, or somebody wants to get their 3rd or 4th DWI. Because we had 7 DWIs this past month as well. Which I forgot to mention. But of those 806, our traffic unit officer conducted 362, and 444 were conducted by our patrol officers. Another thing of issue is our crime reporting, 136 incidents here that we investigated on the criminal side instead of the motor vehicle side. As you can see, disorderly conduct, 61. Our biggest issue that we have in town outside of disorderly conduct is theft from motor vehicle, which we had 38 for the month. And those are where they occurred. Again, they occur on the Silas Highway, and they occur up by Jordan Lane, Folly Brook, easy access on and off the highway, or in and out of Hartford on the main road. Sorry, Councilor Pentelow.
Happened again.
He was a victim of one of them.
Two of them.
Two times, not him.
Your car?
At the boarding, yes.
The whole car got stolen, then my car just a couple days ago got broken into again.
Did we return everything because there was nothing to go out?
That's true.
And that's the thing,
Because
is,
I was between the ages of 26 and 35.
as you can see,
Targeted.
the boarding's down by that 91 corridor, Motel 6, Cumberland Farms, that's a trafficked area. A lot of people come in and out, it's easy access on and off, and that's what we have. And ironically, the question is, well, Chief, how do you prevent it? I mean, there's so much that we can do, there's so much the public can do. In the past, when I first got here, ironically, almost 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years next month, we were running 1 and 3 for our car plan, and we still are, because it's contractual until we change it, hopefully this next contract, and I could get them to a 1 and 4, and we get more cops out there. But that's something that, as a staff, we're working on. We get past the negotiations the next couple of months. Hopefully, we can help with that issue, get more officers on the road. Councilor.
So I know we've talked before.
Councilwoman, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Carbo.
I don't take offense. So Cindy had even mentioned, sometimes I think people they think the crime is higher than it is. So just seeing this number, how are we, the theft out of the vehicles, how are we compared to our surrounding towns? Is that pretty average?
Overall crime, ironically,
Thank you.
the 2022 crime report came out today for the state of Connecticut, the 94 towns on it. When I'm done with this, we can get into that. But we are, what did I say here? 41st out of 94 is the lowest for crime rate. And for the surrounding towns, we're the lowest in the area. But I'll touch on that afterwards.
Thank you.
When you talk about Cromwell, Berlin, we're the lowest. Rocky Hill, Cromwell, we're the lowest. Glastonbury, we're lower than them. Bloomfield, we're lower than them. So, but since you brought it up, I'll talk about it.
That's good.
Deputy Mayor?
Since you've been presenting these reports to us, is that number going up, down, sideways?
Which number is that?
The vehicle thefts?
It's pretty much holding steady for the last 3 presentations I've done here. We could talk about the deterrent about it all day long, but that's a matter for the courts to decide. That's not something for me to touch upon.
Is there anything that we can do to try and reduce that number, other than, other than, don't leave your keys in the car and that kind of thing? Is there anything you can do from your police department standpoint to try and knock that number down?
Hopefully, if I could get my staffing at 51, then we can start coming up with initiatives to putting individuals in unmarked cars in certain areas, certain times when crime's occurring, and cops on the dot, hot spots, and try to deter. But right now, we have to maintain the operation, so it's hard to do that external operation.
Okay.
But once we get there, hopefully, we can get that done.
Thank you.
But our guys are, as you can see from the initial, like I said, with the patrol checks of that 2,700, that's them hitting those spots. But just like any other agency or any other, type of paramilitary organization, the surveillance you're doing, you got counter surveillance. So as soon as we leave, they're watching. They do what they need to do, and they get out. Here's our ordinance enforcement. Parking violations, noise complaints. I know Councilman Forrest is one of those, but he's not here today, but those are the numbers for that. And last but not least, our support services, ACO, 327, child seat checks, that's the public coming in, us doing child safety seats for them. 32 in our school crossing guards, replacing them when they book off. So, any questions? Councilman?
Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. One comment and one question. First, the comment, Chief, thank you for all you're doing and your staff. It's a great job. You guys are everywhere, and it's much appreciated. The question, you have to go back to the slide, but it was on slide 7 on the speeding. And I think if I remember the number, it was like 26. And
Yeah, that's it.
was it 219? Like, is that what the speeding is?
219.
219. So I know that you guys have made a very conscious effort, because that's been an issue that's been in town for the last few years. And just as the question was, someone else asked on another item here, is that number going down, and is it reflective of the work that you guys are doing in terms of speeding? Because I am hearing some positives from the community saying that in some areas that speeding, they're seeing less speeding. And I think it's I want to attribute to you guys, but so is the number seem to be going down in terms of speeding? Is that 26 for 2 months? I'm going to put my glasses on. 26, yeah, 219.
Yeah, 26. That word, yeah. I would have to do.
So some comments on speeding, I guess.
I would have to do the analysis in our computer, and I'll get you an answer. I'll send it to you via email. I'll get the answer for you. I will do a comparison for the last 3 years for that month, for this time frame, and show you what they are.
I appreciate that, but it seems like you guys have really tackled the speeding problem, so it's good. Thank you, that's all.
Okay. So getting back to Councilwoman Carbone's question concerning crime rate. That's a hot topic for everyone, and I was kind of glad I got it this afternoon. So, out of 94 towns, now this is per capita population. So, Wethersfield has a population of 27,038 that's reported. And the crime rate per 1,000, so we're at 24.9. So, if you take the 27,038 divided by 1,000, it comes up to 27.04. And you times that by 24.9, it comes out to 674. And that's the total reported crimes for the town of Wethersfield for 2022. So that's how they come up with that number. So now if you take the mid-state towns, the surrounding towns, Berlin is at 36, Carmel is at 54.8, Newington is at 45.9, Rocky Hill's at 37.3. Like I said, Wethersfield is at 24.9. We're the lowest in the mid-state area. And remember, we have butt up against Hartford, which is 77.6. And then I threw across the river Glastonbury, and that's at 31.8. So these surrounding towns, Wethersfield has the lowest crime rate, which is a testament to what the men and women are doing in this police department. But I try to take it a little bit step further now, as I said, we abut Hartford. So what are towns abut Hartford? Windsor, 27.7. We're still lower than them. Bloomfield, 51.7. West Hartford, 48. Newington, 45.9. And us, 24.9. So not only are we the lowest of the surrounding towns, we're the lowest of the towns that abut Hartford. So again, based on what we have and what we're doing, that's fantastic work on the men and women of this police department. And any other questions?
That's a great question, wasn't it?
It was perfect timing.
Just joking. Good, thank you.
Here, I have a greater one.
Chief, can you share possibly, maybe just high level, what do you think it is you guys are doing differently that surrounding towns aren't doing?
I'm empowering my officers to do their job, to make decisions. That's what we have to do. It's the only way you're going to get things done. I'm not a micromanager. They can tell you I don't micromanage them. I empower them to run their divisions, but we have to look at it holistically. You know, I'm at 50,000 feet. They're at 30,000 feet. My sergeants are at 5,000 feet or 500 feet, and then you got your officers. Getting them motivated to do their jobs, getting them to training. Like I said, let them do their job. You know, go out there and do it. Don't be afraid to do your job. Don't worry about the racial profiling report. Don't worry about everything else that's going on in other towns. This is Wethersfield. We are not them. Do what you're doing, and we're going to have this result. We can't be afraid.
Thank you.
Told you it was better.
Just, did you have a question? Okay. Just real quick, Chief, last summer, not only Wethersfield, we had a, taste of it, but a couple other municipalities, the street takeovers. As the weather was getting warmer, exactly. I know, I hope I'm not jinxing the whole police department by saying all this. But, there was it was prevalent last summer. There was some concerns that this summer we would see a repeat of it, if not, the same, but worse than what we saw last year. You and I talked throughout the legislative session. I testified in support of a regional task force bill and additional funding. We saw an incident in Vernon, Tolland, I think it was Tolland, that kind of highlighted the issue, and I think police forces and departments came together to tackle that issue. Were there any incidents this past summer, recently, I think working together with our other surrounding municipalities, kind of infiltrating social media and getting, an idea of where and when these meetups are going to happen, kind of put a stop to it? Is that what we saw here in Wethersfield as well, if kind of curtailing any activity before it even started?
We're working with our partners to the north in Hartford, C4, their Intel unit division up there, doing data mining on the social media, and you're able to identify, a couple of events that were going to take place here. We did have one big one. We caught afterwards, but the other ones we caught ahead of time. And all we do is monitor them. We send extra detailed officers up there, and we don't let it get out of hand. This has been going on for 6 years, 7 years. It was prevalent during COVID because no one had anything to do. I think hopefully with other restaurants and bars and things like that opening up later on at night, the older crowds are going to those venues and not taking their cars and running the streets. It's a younger crowd we're dealing with, but they know we're looking at social media. They're looking at us, and they say, yeah, well, we got Wethersfield once. We're honest, we'll go somewhere else.
Good. Well, good job. Thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Gentlemen, always a pleasure to see you guys.
Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
While that goes up, we do not have any hearings tonight. We do have the first of two public comments coming up. If I remind folks that you are limited to 5 minutes, please state your name and address, and Sue has a sign-up sheet for you up there. Anybody wishing to speak tonight? Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me put my name here, and then I'll start.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. My name is Bob Woodward. I live at 456 Middletown Avenue. I've lived there for 45 years, and I am an independent. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. 1 year ago, we were in the midst of a run-up to an election that included a referendum for 169 million or some such high number for the school system. There were ads placed against the referendum in both the Rear Reminder and the Wethersfield Life. And one of the points the ad made was that somewhere in 2018, there was an assessment of the school system. Thankfully, the referendum lost. A week and a half ago, the Rear Reminder ran an article saying facilities assessment showed deterioration in town schools, referencing the 2018 document that the school system had received. 5 years after they received it, it finally became public. 1 year after the bond issue was out there as a referendum. To me, that is dishonest management in our school system. If this had come out in 2018, it's apparently, from what I gather, in 3 parts. Just think what we might have done. We might have gotten the first part finished and maybe been ready to move to the second part now. If it had been come up a year ago after the 169 million or whatever was defeated, we might be ready to put something on this election for a third of it or some part of it. But it came up a week and a half ago. That's dishonest management. That's lack of transparency. And we're all victims of that. Not only having to vote on a $169 million referendum a year ago, and several people have said to me, thank goodness that did not pass. But also because we pay taxes. Over half our taxes for a school system that how well is it being managed when this is hidden from us? So I have 2 requests, and you're going to say, oh, we're in an election time, et cetera, and you're not going to like the first request. But I'm going to make it anyway, because I'm tired of paying over half my taxes and thinking about a school system management that gets away with hiding something that's 5 years old but could have made a difference in the town. And the first request is to remove the management of the school system. The paid management, I don't know about the school board, how much they had to do with this, and they've probably changed in the election since then. You would know better than that than I have. But please, and if need be, with an election coming up, at least communicate this to the town manager. The second request is to get a small group together that represents the town, as many facets of the town as you can, not just those with children, and get this 2018 report out to the public, not when we're here in council chambers for an open hearing on a referendum, but somewhere where we can look at it, where we can listen to it, where we can raise questions about it, and where we can understand the one-third, and what they're about, and what it will cost. And we'll get to ask some questions. Please do those things. The schools, yes, they do need repair. Most of us in the town don't have unlimited pocketbooks. We don't want to see another $169 million referendum out there. But we don't want to vote on something that's been hidden for us for 5 years. That is mismanagement. I wish you courage and wisdom, but please do something about this. Don't let it stay hidden. And don't let the people who kept it hidden feel like, oh yeah, we did the right thing. No, they did not. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartzman?
I'm sure you are all thrilled to see me walk in today, the guy that lives next to the barn. I'll try to be short. So, like many in the community, I was surprised to see the developments of the last week with what happened on Ox Yoke. I'm happy for those neighbors that things are going to work out and their neighborhood or properties will not be changed. My surprise is a little different, though. I was surprised the neighbors were actually personally notified that a change was going to happen. See, for me, unless I looked at the town council agendas, I would have never learned that a possible parking lot was going to be put next to my house. Now, I have been told that a recommendation is going to be made to put the parking lot across the street on the large section of Keisha where the athletic field is going to go, so I certainly hope that that is true. Ultimately, though, I guess it is not going to be definitely decided tonight. So while it seems the ox yoke situation was able to be resolved through emails, discussions in just less than a week, this is now the third town council meeting where I have been speaking on the same thing, and it seems I will leave without a definite decision. I would think that people chose to purposely live on a cul-de-sac, just like I chose to purposely live next to a barn. I don't understand why I can't be given a definitive answer like they were. Speaking of the parking lot, I'm going to optimistically assume it will not be in front of the barn. It looks as if some money is going to be earmarked tonight for a temporary parking lot. I do have a suggestion, although my last suggestion to help with parking fell on completely deaf ears. FYI, people still are not following the parking signs. Anyway, here goes. Instead of plopping down the gravel right away, let's not waste that money until we get the final concept plan down. Any land that gets gravel is not going to be able to be used for any kind of agriculture. The current concept plan has the agricultural use abutting Collier, then the athletic field below it, then the parking area below it closest to Stonegate. This puts a parking lot right behind all those Stonegate houses. I talked with Sean Green, and just like me, he does not want that view of a parking lot either. Wouldn't it make more sense to put the parking area between the agricultural field and the athletic field? As it is now, anyone parking to use the agricultural field, let's say it's a community farm, will need to walk around the complete athletic field to get to the agricultural field. Let's think of all the demographics that would possibly be doing this. As I tell my marketing students, it will include a more mature demographic. Of course, including handicap accessible paths the whole way. By putting the parking lot between the areas, it makes more sense for everyone. And isn't this plan for everyone? So wait, get the plan together, and then use that $100,000 for something that is long-term. Now we would have a parking lot that is in no one's backyard, and the Stonegate neighbors would be looking at our brand-new natural grass athletic field that will be built by a local business. It will look like the Field of Dreams I described a few weeks ago. Anyway, I do want to thank you for all your service to the community. As the council changes, I certainly hope that there can be more open conversation about the possibilities of Keisha. I hope that all the members of the community can have input and that that input is valued. It's been real, it's been fun, but the last 18 months or so have definitely not been real fun. I'll put a plug in because it worked last time. The Lady Eagles swim and dive team take on Windsor tomorrow at WHS at 5 p.m. A win will secure the Lady Eagles' 15th conference title in a row. Oh yeah, that will take place in a pool that is over 50 years old. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jared Christensen. I live at 74 Broad Street. I am a sixth-generation farmer at Anderson Farms in Old Wethersfield. A few weeks ago, I heard the talks of a possible farm stand going up on the Keisha property from an out-of-town farm, and I wanted to make the point that I think that that would be detrimental to our farm stand in Old Wethersfield. That's been here for a farm that's been here 170 years. I think that if anybody should open a farm stand in Wethersfield, on town property, it should be a Wethersfield farm, and that's definitely not something we're opposed to doing over there, if that's something that you guys are interested in having over there. But I think bringing in an out-of-town farm would really hurt the business of Wethersfield businesses that have been here a long time. So I just wanted to make the point that Anderson Farms, is not opposed to putting a farm stand over there, and that we believe a Wethersfield farm should be first and foremost considered for putting something over there before someone coming in from out of town. I don't have anything else to say. Do you need me to fill out paperwork or something? I filled this out, but they said. Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Young?
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. As I was discussing at the last meetings, you have Highland Street parking, pedestrian safety, and people have been parking there for 25 years. Why has all of a sudden it become a public safety issue? Of course, we had the greatest chiefs in the world, we had the greatest councils in the world, but now the greater of the greatest has claimed it to be a pedestrian safety, which I think it had been for the last 25 years. But to put gravel on land for parking, when you have only a short distance from that point, where you have a parking lot for the High Crest School, you should tear up that pavement and use the $170,000 to put new pavement down and have the people walk. I mean, after all, what they need to park the car for is for exercise. Go to the games, let the kids run around. Well, let them run from the parking lot at High Crest School all the way up to where the fields are. And save the $170,000 of gravel that you're going to put on farmland and put down asphalt over at the school. Because that hasn't been discussed, or at least I haven't heard it being discussed, but I think that would be the best way to handle it, because that school is going to be there for many, many years. I recall not long ago talking about tearing it down and renovating and whatever. Forget it. It won't pass. Nothing's going to pass going forward because of the history of this town council right here, the prior town council that we had, and the way that you spend our money. $300,000 for the Cove warehouse improvements. We went back to the Historic Society for what, a rung of onions? I mean, normally when you rent something to somebody, you have all different kinds of costs built into what it costs to keep that property going and in good shape. Obviously, our thinkers didn't think. We get a rung of onions, or maybe we used to, and here the building needs $300,000 worth of repairs. That's kind of crazy. That same goes along with those other buildings that we have that we rent for so cheap. And buildings that we have no leases for, where people have it, like the Little Red Schoolhouse, 365 days a year, they have total possession of it and pay nothing. And we spoke about this, Mayor, back in January, about whether they wanted to put they wanted the town to buy them a shed to put in the back. And that was the first I heard of the Little Red Schoolhouse. And since then, we found out those people in there don't even have a lease. They don't pay any rent, and we supply everything. Repairs, just like the Kinney Center. We pay for everything down there with the exception of $3,000 a year, and all they give us is $100. We're the greatest deal makers in the world, aren't we? And then when I look at this list, there's more deals and there's more giveaways. And the regular citizen got nothing. Nothing. Why would anybody go out and vote for the Rhino Party or the Democrat Party? They both do nothing for the general citizens. They take care of the special interest, as we know. And the special interests are well taken care of. Now, there was another issue that came up at the last meeting that was on your agenda. I don't know where it stands, but where the Keisha Farm Committee wants from ARPA almost $200,000. I mean, didn't they come into this deal saying that there was no need for, it was going to be self-sustaining, it was going to be, no taxpayer funds were needed? And don't forget, that Keisha Farm Committee included also the sports people who got $1.5 million. They shouldn't have gotten a cent. Just like the Keisha Farm Committee, who wants almost $200,000, should not get a cent. They should take their hats and go out on the street and collect money if they want stuff.
Mr. Young?
And look at Keisha Farm.
Your
When
5
you
minutes
get
are
about Keisha Farm up in the back, you see all the tall bushes? If those people were sincere, they'd be out
We
there
can
cleaning
continue
those
this
fields
conversation
off.
or this
But they're not.
discussion.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
May I add one thing to my words on a different subject? Thank you for getting Beaver Road paved.
We'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Let's take it. Better to get to the post.
Anybody has to go to the post office, Bank of America, or the laundromat?
Olive oil.
Yes, all of those. Thank you. Moving on through the agenda, council reports. Any council reports from boards or commissions over the last couple weeks? Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. I have 3 quick ones. First, the Veterans Commission on October 19th, that's this Thursday, from 4 to 7 at Pitkin. They will have a benefits seminar. When we created the Veterans Committee, this was one of the main things we wanted to do, was to make sure the Wethersfield veterans had or knew about the benefits that they're entitled to. We have about 1,400 veterans. Second, the Citizens Recognition Committee. We have 4 nominees for the first year, which is great, and we'll be looking at those soon, so that's terrific. And then attending EDIC, and I'll just mention 2 things from EDIC. One is the Winter Lights Program for businesses. Will be this winter the first time. We want to highlight the Silas Highway, but it's businesses all over town that will be part of a Winter Lights program. And I also, since it was the last meeting, I thanked all of them, folks there, thanked Councilor Pentelow for all his contributions to EDIC. But it was a good meeting, as it always is there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other council reports from boards or commissions? Seeing none, council comments? Any council comments from members? Councilman O'Connor?
I do have a question for you, Mayor. Is this the last chance we'll have to address the public, since this is, for most of us, our last meeting? Is that correct?
This is well, it's not technically the last meeting. There is a meeting. I think it's a special meeting.
Special meeting next Wednesday, the 25th.
Oh, no, we have that special meeting, but the first meeting in November, we canceled the one Monday prior to Election Day, and then we just hold the swearing-in meeting. It is technically a special meeting for the swearing-in of the new council. We do, the preceding council has comments during that meeting, but it's typically ceremonial, so I suggest this is probably our final meeting.
All right.
I'll talk.
All right, well then, if you'll bear with me for a minute here. I've had the opportunity to serve this town for well over 20 years. And in that 20 years, I've seen a lot of things. And I've experienced a lot of things. And some of the things that I've seen and experienced are actually very disheartening. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the future of this town. I'm concerned in particular about one party that is more focused on the party than the people. It's more focused on the politics than the policies. And I'll just walk you through a little history. And since when comments that are contrary to what is posted along social media channels are taken down, especially when they're factual, this is our only opportunity to let the truth come out. And so I'm going to share with you the truth. And I will preface this with, I went through multiple comments during the Keisha Farm debate, and I will note not a single person has ever come up and countered or stated what I said was inaccurate or infactual. Because the reality was, I was using their words, not mine. Nobody countered it, so I'm now going to repeat these, but I'm going to go a step further. 20 years ago, I sat on this council. And at that time, and you can't make this stuff up, the Democratic Town Committee decided it would be a great idea to appoint the then Democrat mayor's wife to be town clerk. We had an assistant town clerk with 10 years experience, state certification, a single mom. But they figured the mayor's wife and giving the mayor a pension for the rest of their life and his family was a better decision. And so they appointed the Democratic town mayor wife to be town clerk. By the way, she was working at Manusso's, which was a liquor store. I thought I had seen everything when that happened. But unfortunately, it's actually even worse. And I will preface this with, I have many, many Democratic friends. My friends are awake, they're not woke. My parents were registered Democrats. My grandparents were registered Democrats. The Democratic Party today is not the Democratic Party of yesterday. The Democratic Party today, run by its current chairperson, is about divisiveness and division. It's about sowing seeds of discontent. And I challenge anyone to prove me wrong. The Democratic Party chair has specifically instructed Democratic councilors not to work with Republicans. That's a fact. Not to work with Republicans. Do not negotiate with Republicans. Do not work with them. Do not give them credit for anything. Do you know our Democratic state rep has not been at a council meeting in 4 years? Because her Democratic Party chair told her, do not work with the Republicans. She represents the entire town. And she's going to punish everybody in this town because her party isn't in power. That's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. The only meeting she's been in the last 4 years that I've been here was when she came up to carry a pride flag, a flag she personally refused to fly despite having multiple opportunities to do it, and then didn't even stick around for the vote. That's disgraceful. That is not in the best interest of the town of Wethersfield. So I ask you, how does this type of politicking help the town? Let me share some things with you that were posted online. The Democratic town chair and her party posted, the Republicans are going to close Willard Pool. It was a lie. It was a blatant lie. Never was that ever discussed. And by the way, it never happened. But you know what? Hey, let's just rile up people and make this story up and see what happens. When Republicans countered that on Facebook, on social media, those posts were taken down. But it wasn't true. But they didn't end there. Then they went on to say they're going to defund the library. That was another lie. And guess what? The town manager, Bonnie Ferry at the time, reprimanded the Democratic Party chair for doing that. Library wasn't defunded. In fact, they got everything they asked for. And then I love this one too. If the Republicans don't give the Board of Ed the increase they're asking for, there are going to be massive layoffs. They didn't get the increase. And there was not one single teacher laid off. But it made great theater. And when someone countered it, the post was removed. That's not in the best interest of the town of Wethersfield. That's about power and politics. It's about party over people. And this is the only opportunity we have a chance to actually share that. And let's talk about Keisha Farms. That was sold to the town. That was sold to the town as a sports field opportunity. And I read all the quotes of the people that stated that. Every one of them were Democratic Town Committee members or Wethersfield Keisha Farms members. They shared those posts. These counselors on my left, the Democratic counselors, shared those quotes. And they said, yes, let's buy this. It's our last opportunity to get sports fields. And then what did they do? As soon as the field was bought, they pulled a bait and switch and said, oh, we don't want fields, we want farms. Something that was never even touted in the referendum. Not even mentioned in the referendum. It wasn't true. They did a bait and switch. That's not in the best interest of Wethersfield. That's about party over people. And I'll repeat that. That is party over people. And what do Democrats do when you bring this to their attention? They don't come up and counter you. They send nasty emails and become keyboard warriors, where then they call you names because you tell the truth, because you read their comments, not your own, their comments in the things that they have said. And that does not benefit the town of Wethersfield. They've had hundreds of opportunities to rise above and represent the people, and each time they have chosen to represent the party. And it's sad. And it's sad because there are so many great Democrat people. And you know, people will always say this is a partisan attack, but let me explain something to you. I am probably the least partisan of most of the counselors on this table. I've done more Democratic resolutions than anyone else. When Catone Field's resolution was written, only one person supported me. My own party didn't support me. That person then became the mayor and then was the state rep for the next 20 years. So to me, this isn't about party. This is about what is best for the town of Wethersfield. And when one party thinks they're better than the other party and they think we shouldn't work with them, then that party has a serious problem, and the people of Wethersfield should know that. And they should go into the voting booth thinking that. Because if you can't tell the truth and be honest and sincere, you went to referendum. I'm telling you right now, if the Democrats decide to go to referendum on the schools and they say, hey, I think it's a great idea to do a 7-8 school, and they go out and sell it to the whole town, and the town comes out and votes, yes, 7-8, they may turn around and say, you know what, screw that, let's do a 5-6 instead. How can you trust them when they just went out there and sold a referendum for Keisha Farms, and then they backed out of it after you bought the field? And then they change the narrative and say, well, 70% of people don't want a field. That's not even true. The majority of people in their own surveys said they want a field. But using their logic, 72% don't want a farm. That's true, according to their logic. How do we as a town move ahead? We can stick our head in a newspaper and pretend nothing is happening and just ignore it and call this white noise, because what we've learned is the more you tell a lie without anybody countering it, it becomes a truth. Well, I'm going to tell you this. My commitment to this town, and I've served it for a long time, is I will come up here and call that out. When I wrote the resolution for Catone Field, my own party was against it. But you know the difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party? The Republican Party chair helped me write that resolution, even though his own party was against it, because he knew it meant something to me. That is the difference. And so when I go in and vote this year, I am going to, for the first time in my life, vote party line. Because the Democrat Party that I've experienced on this council is not looking out for the best interest of citizens. They are looking out for the best interest of themselves. And I, for one, will never support that. Thank you.
Any further comments? Council comments?
Councilman Lesser?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things in a different direction. And since this is our last official council meeting, I'm going to talk about some things I think that worked well, that we worked together on. First, I want to mention is that we hired a new town manager, Fred Presley, which I think is going to be great for this town for a long, long time. And I'm very pleased that he's our manager, and I think it's going to be really good for a long time. Second, I think a lot of the ARPA decisions that we've made and that we will make tonight are much-needed things. For example, the chiller at Silas Deane Highway, and a lot of good funding of those federal funds, a lot of good uses. And third, I'll mention something that's going to happen next week, and I'll kind of end with this one, and that is the strategic plan for Wethersfield. This is something that we worked together with the citizens. Great, we had 860 respondents who responded to the survey. We had a bunch of people meet with the consultant, and we came up with a great plan that is going to be a vision and a roadmap for all of Wethersfield for the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. And whoever sits up here, that will provide a place to kind of help lead the town and lead them in the direction. And then I'll finally say this, I had a few small initiatives that I really want to thank the entire council for the support. One was the Citizen Recognition Committee that Shelley and Dan were very helpful to get to where it is. Secondly, pickleball, appreciate there was some support there. You guys helped get that passed, which I think is going to be really good for the town. And third and finally, I'll mention another small initiative I had that the council was very supportive, and I'm very appreciative, and that was the no smoking ban at public properties, fields throughout town, that will have the signage going up for no smoking, which is, I've heard from some people with secondhand smoke problems, and some people have actually died. I think this will be good, and it's a good message about no smoking. So just wanted to mention some of those positives to all of you. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Glad to work with you on all those. Mr. Deputy Mayor?
No, I think I'm good.
Sorry.
I had a lot prepared, and
Sorry.
I can't follow Mr. O'Connor, Councilor O'Connor.
You used up the comments for all of us.
I will say just a few words. I think Wethersfield has a lot of fantastic things going for itself, and it's disheartening to open up the Hartford Current front page and read about town in a turf war, grass versus synthetic, and the preservationists make case. Can decision occur before Election Day? And, you know, I thought we would be able to work together on more items. Everything seems to turn into a controversy, particularly with Keisha Farm. And I just feel it's playing politics. We did what we thought was in the best interest of the town. We did what we thought the people had intended when they voted to purchase that property. My personal opinion was we should have never purchased the property because we didn't have a plan in place. And here we are 5 years later, still not even to say talking about a plan, it's arguing about a plan. And it's really not the way things should go. And to be able to just talk to a newspaper reporter and put it on the front page, a good portion of the article is not factual at all. I spent a portion of the day today going through all my notes and had thought about commenting a rebuttal, if you will, about some of the personal comments that I received. I will say the most disappointing one was dump gravel and run. And I'm not sure exactly who wrote that. I have a fairly good idea. And that person has no idea why people are stepping down from this council and they're choosing not to run again. So I take that to heart. The parking proposal that we'll probably talk about later on, was never intended as a temporary fix. It was never intended as being presented as a gravel parking lot. This town has a reason for using gravel as opposed to pavement, and that has to do with stormwater runoff. To be put in the middle of precious farmland, where would you put it? Would you put it near where the people are going to use it, or would you have them walk great distance? The article, or some postings suggested, why don't we just park at the Highcrest School and people can walk to the barn? Well, we were called draconian for our parking plan. That's in writing, to ask people to walk from Highcrest parking lot to an event at the barn. Draconian. Where would you have the people park when you have an event that at this barn that's not a great distance to walk, too far to walk? You put parking next to an athletic field. If the field's going to go there, then you need parking. There was comments made about where are we going to park all these huge out-of-state team buses? And where are we going to have 1,000 parking spaces for the sporting events that are going to take place? So we have our town engineer sketch up some plans to put a couple parking lots to service the proposed area for a field, athletic field. And then you're taking up all the valuable farmland for parking spaces. We come up with a proposal to get the parking off of Highland Street, which everyone will agree has been an issue for 25 years. Why all of a sudden do you need to put parking in? Well, we need to put it in because people have come up to this podium yelling and screaming at us about all the cars parked on Highland Street and how dangerous it is. So we come up with a solution. No, you can't do that. That's poor. You need more community input. Just very, very discouraging. And just to summarize it, I could go on for hours, so I don't want to talk as long as Mr. O'Connor did. I just think Wethersfield should be in a better light than the front page of the paper arguing about where parking goes, or whether a field is synthetic or grass, or comments that, well, the Parks and Rec Board decided that it should go at Mill Woods rather than Keisha, contrary to the meeting 2 months earlier, where the town manager suggested the best place to put, or a good place to put it would be Keisha. It has the room for it. Then I sit up here and a person comes to the podium and says, well, it was a unanimous decision by the Parks and Rec Board to put the field at Mill Woods. And I leaned back in my chair and I said, is that right? And Councilor Lesser said, yes, it was a unanimous vote. Okay, news to me. I didn't attend that meeting and I wasn't aware of it. So I went and pulled out the minutes for that meeting. Yeah, it was a unanimous vote. And the vote was to put a synthetic field at Mill Woods. When other councilors said, no, I don't want a synthetic field anywhere in Wethersfield. It's just mind-boggling. And I'm sorry that my short 4-year term is coming to an end, but I'm sorry that the town is in such a disarray over something so minor and insignificant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Further comments? Well, I'll take a page from Councilman Lesser's book. Having served on this council for 10 years, the last four as mayor, it has truly been an honor coming up here. We've started off with a bang, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and that took up a lot of oxygen in the room. We all, as council, then learned how to deal with public life, public meetings, libraries, schools, parks, police, fire, how to handle the daily lives of service to the public through remote means. I think we did a tremendous job then. We learned from it. We continued on from it. We passed that year a budget, a bipartisan budget in 2020, our first budget as this council, actually the prior council, but not many of us changed that are up here. We moved forward from that, worked together on a number of initiatives. Mr. Woodworth mentioned the Beaver Brook. This town held true to form, or this council held true to form, putting funding towards repaving. There's really not a neighborhood that hadn't been touched over the last 4 years, that hadn't been paved. Obviously, there are roads that hadn't, but there are all four corners of this town. Happy to say Highland Street was a state project that worked with the town. Woket Hill to the Hartford border, state worked again with the town to make sure that those were both paved. Other areas of the town, Old Wethersfield, no question in anybody's mind up here, looking at the safety improvements that were done along Main Street, pedestrian-friendly, paving improvements, crosswalks, bike paths, those all came under this council. Going forward with economic development, as Councilman Lesser had mentioned, that too had been put forth by this council. Originally, we had a half-time position. We fully funded it. We saw the merits of that. And then listening to the chief talk about his goals and fully hiring a police force, those were all included in those. I go back just a couple of years ago because we've all talked about, what had passed before and what had come before us since then. Over the years, there's been some questions about what has occurred and what has been adopted by this council. A couple years back, there was something that hit everybody's mailboxes right around this time. Proposal by the Democrats for a new athletic field. Republicans said we can't do it. Democrats proposed it. That's what we just heard about in this conversation. Clean up the cove. We had proposed that, or Democrats had proposed that, Republicans couldn't. We see in our packet tonight, as well as other funding items to clean up and improve the cove. We heard from the police chief about more police officers. We're happy to see those. Economic development. Again, it was proposed, but Republicans couldn't do it. Yes, in fact, we did. We hired, as I mentioned, a full-time economic development officer. Fully funding fire training. I don't recall where that was, but I did look at the numbers. We have about $150,000 that we put towards our fire department through air tanks, turnout gear, as well as fans for the carbon monoxide in the extractors in the bays to ensure the firefighters are safe. And then finally, as I had mentioned, the resurfacing of roads. Every year we've allocated anywhere from $900,000 to a little over $1 million for those. And we've also included state funding for that. Over the last 4 years, funding for our roads has outpaced any year prior to that. And that's a track record I'm proud of. But this being our last meeting, it has been a pleasure serving up here, both in the minority on this side and in the majority. We have worked together over the years. I always say this, there's about 98% of the stuff is always bipartisan, and even the the budgets mostly are bipartisan, but there are a couple issues that aren't. And that's not how public service is. It's definitely not how the public service should be, you know, when I came into the position of being mayor. And I can say it, we agreed more times than we didn't agree. And I think even the times that we didn't agree, we walked out of those disagreements still talking, walking out to our cars in the parking lot. That's how local politics should be. It shouldn't be the bickering back and forth. You know, Deputy Mayor had mentioned talking about, you know, leaving at a certain time. I'll probably mention this next month at the final meeting, but this was the right time for me to leave. You know, it's time for my family and for me to be with my family, but more importantly, you know, a lot of this nitpicking that goes on behind the screen, you know, it really does get to you. You look at the comments and you think, or you even listen to some of the comments, and you think you're doing a service for the town by what you're doing. And you're taking in considerations of everybody. You know, this is 27,000 people who live in this town. On any given night, there's what did we have, 6 tonight, 5 tonight? The most we've ever had, 40 people come up. There's 27,000 people in this town. And when you listen to comments from 40 people, those are engaged people. But the disengaged far outweigh those that are engaged. But they're still residents, they're still taxpayers, they still care what happens in their backyard, they still care what happens to their kids' education, they still care about what happens to their town. And that's what we have to do as a council, is we have to take in everybody's considerations. It's difficult, it really is. You gotta balance the wants, the needs, what may be right, what may not be right. But, you know, that's what we're elected to do. That's why we're up here. I think over the last, at least personally, over the last 10 years, I've taken in all those considerations. I've listened to them, I've read them, digested them. And I think for all of us, not just me, what we do, vote up here, we do for the entire town. So, thank you.
Well said. Well said.
Moving on, any other comments? If not, Ms. Interim Town Manager for the second time. Any comments?
Really no comments, just here because the manager's under the weather, so just sitting in for him. But I know he would want me to at least say to the counselors tonight, as some of them are coming to the end of their term and some of them are up for re-election, just on behalf of the staff, to thank you for all your efforts and hard work, looking to benefit the community and the residents, because we all know it's sometimes a thankless job, and it's a lot of hours, and they don't get paid for it. So just on behalf of the staff and the manager, I just want to say thank you to all the counselors tonight for all your efforts and work on behalf of the residents here in Wethersfield. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure working with you as interim 5 years ago. So since then, we've seen a number of town managers come and go. So it's been a pleasure working with all of them. Sue, gearing up for the election?
Yes, the office is working hard. We're issuing absentee ballots. We've issued 252 so far, and 64 of those were today. And we've received 37 returns so far.
Okay. No bids. There is a consent agenda before us tonight. These are minutes for approval, but if you would indulge me 1 second, I did notice on, let's see, what is it, page 4 of our minutes? 1, 2, nope, page 3. Sue, under my comments, and it's just a simple one. I had mentioned MTH Hair Salon on the Silas Deane Highway. It's MTC.
MTC?
Yes, I apologize for that. I think I mentioned it as MTH. Still, it's a great place to go. I do plan on sending my kids there.
I move the consent agenda. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. There are no approvals of ordinances or resolutions before us tonight, so I'll go to item L, unfinished business. This is the ARPA allocations that were tabled from the meeting 2 weeks ago. We do have an explanation or a list of not only those allocations that have been made to date, but we also have a recommendation of, from the year-end transfer recommendations, as well as other items for consideration. We can either move this as a packet, discuss it, or see if we can get some consensus on some that everybody agrees on.
Do you want me to make a motion to start it? Because I'll make a motion, I'll put it on the table to approve the ARPA allocations recommended and as submitted by the ARPA Subcommittee, so as a packet.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any comments? Discussion? Councilman Hill.
Thank you, Mayor, appreciate it. First, on a couple of these items that are on here, obviously, the gravel parking lot gets a lot of the eyeballs on it, but honestly, we came into this subcommittee, we all had different kind of priorities, and mine being the Silas Deane Middle School chiller, which I know the deputy mayor was very passionate about as well. It's not the sexiest thing in the world, but it really had to get done, and I'm very appreciative of that, of everyone's support there. And also the Keene Foundation, the fact that we were able to kind of put some money aside for that. It's an indispensable organization in this community, so I'm very, very happy that we're able to support that. And in regards to the gravel parking lot, this has been pared down to one location. As Mr. Schwartzman said, I do agree it should be on the main site. That being said, this has to be done for safety reasons. Like we've said, this has been 20 years. I'm glad the town, we're finally doing something about it, which is fantastic. But no matter what happens at this plot of land, whether it's all farms, all fields, whatever, you're gonna need parking there eventually anyway. So we need to pull those cars off of Highland, and the fact that we can do this here, I'm very appreciative for. And Mayor, if you just kind of indulge me just for a minute, in regards to kind of this Keisha issue in general, this being my last meeting, I figure just kind of get things off my chest a little bit. You come up here and criticism comes with this job, right? And we all have thick skins here. But this particular issue, there's two things that have really just stuck with me that I just kind of want to kind of bring out there. And that's kind of the use of just kind of misleading information, not unfactual, but misleading. And second, this idea that we're just not listening. So, the Friends of Keystone, they've been very upfront that they do not want the synthetic turf there. I completely understand their position. I disagree with it. I think it would be an invaluable asset to the community if we could put synthetic there. Youth sports in town would love it there. But you go and you hear these things, you go on the Friendship Keystone website, and it has, quotes about several environmental health and safety concerns and, quote, dangers of artificial turf. And you read that and you get taken aback. And so you start, all right, well, what is the science behind all this? And, what they don't say is, what they do tell you is there's a lot of anecdotal information, articles from Massachusetts and places in New Hampshire that have had bad experiences with artificial turf, but we don't kind of have that luxury of cherry picking, evidence, right? So I just went to what we have to rely on is the federal and state stewards of the environment and health, so what does the EPA have to say? And there's all, Sue, I'll provide you the references here. I'd like to be incorporated in the minutes. First, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency states that current information from a number of tire crumb studies, tire crumb is what artificial turf is made of, does not show an elevated health risk from playing on fields with artificial turf or tire crumbs.
These studies include a 2010 Connecticut Department of Public Health study that was published in 2011. So you might say, all right, well, that was 10 years ago, right? It doesn't say anything about PFAS, okay? So what about PFAS in artificial turf? This is from the Department of Public Health. To date, peer-reviewed scientific research published on this topic is limited to a single study from 2022. That's important because there's one study. This is now the gold standard. There's no alternative here, and it's less than a year old. The results of this study, conducted by researchers from public health departments in universities in Sweden and Canada, indicate that the fluorinated substances measured in artificial turf fields appear to be bound to the components of the artificial turf and do not leach into the environment. Further, they are not the type of fluorinated chemicals that transform into harmful PFAS. For all these reasons, this peer-reviewed study shows that the presence of fluorinated substances in artificial turf does not pose an exposure concern to users of the field. So it does not have an elevated health risk, does not transform into PFAS, does not leach into the environment. This is all, instead we get the exact opposite, that we can't farm there, right? We can't even farm there if you put that here. Kids are gonna get cancer. I mean, this is from the EPA. This is from the Department of Public Health. It's just so frustrating what we have to counteract on this issue. And like, zoom out, we're putting a park here. This is for a park for children. It's just, it's incredibly frustrating to have to kind of over and over again deal with this. And like, the more you say it, people will believe it, despite what we've just discussed. And, and regarding just that we're not listening. And this to me is the most frustrating because like we're all volunteers here. We all put a tremendous amount, like almost an embarrassing amount of time that we put in here. And, the fact to say that we're not listening, I mean, we've had dozens of opportunities for public comment. We've had public hearings on this. We've had listening sessions with the community. A town-wide survey has been done. We've had research scientists from UConn come in and talk to us. I mean, many of us have toured the farm. Individually, we've met with residents. And it's not that we're not listening. It's just that we're just asking you to compromise. Just kind of move. You'll get your piece, but other people have got to say in this. As the mayor said, there's 27,000 people in town. Everybody's got a piece of this. We all own it, not just the Friends of Keisha, not the people who live there. Yes, you have a very important role and a very important voice, but there's more than just you. There's 27,000 people here. And it's just been, that part has just been extremely frustrating. It's not that we're not listening. We just want you to compromise. Like I've been very blunt. I don't support the idea of putting a farm there. I think it's a bad idea. It sets a bad precedent. It's not a good idea for the town of Wethersfield to get in the farming business, but I supported it anyway. I supported to put this concept plan forward because I knew it would incorporate the field that we desperately need and something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm willing to compromise. I'm just asking for the Friends and everyone else to compromise as well. So I urge adoption of this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments, questions on this item? Seeing none, the motion's before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Pat missed it. No new business, and we have a second public comment portion. Similar to the first. 5 minutes, state your name and address. Anybody wishing to speak? Emily?
Hi, Emily Zambrello, 72 Village Drive, number 314. I was writing down some comments during the council's comments, and I just want to say I'm one of the Democratic candidates running for office. It's my first time, and I'm not going to use this as a platform. I just wanted to respond to a couple of small things, one of which is that posts are being deleted, which if you go on the Wethersfield Democrats page and you search for Willard, they're all right there. They're still there, all the comments are there. The budget last year in 2022, it's all April 2022, did include proposed cuts to Willard Pool. Our town committee put out posts saying, hey, if you feel strongly about this, comment, send in your comments. It worked. The cut didn't end up going through because the public period worked. And the same was true of the library. So that is all still there, and it's there because public comment really works, and keeping the public engaged is a really positive thing, and the people were heard. So I just want to also add, Keisha Farm is kind of going the same way. There were plans put out that started from a place of no compromise with the sports complex and then the multiple fields with not much room for other uses. And I think that was really too bad, because there is so much room for compromise. And a lot of these sports families and neighbors, they overlap. They have a lot of common interests. And yet when we start from that place of divisiveness, it's hard to get that back to a good place. And I think the current plan is a big improvement over what was there before. I won't speak to the specifics right now. I just want to say it doesn't need to be as big of a deal as it is. There is still room for compromise. We can work on this together, and I hope that we can better engage the public for the rest of this process, because there will be a lot of opportunity for public comment, and I think we can get to a good place there. And that's all I'll say in the matter. I just wanted to address a couple of things and hope we can move forward from a more productive, collaborative place. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Young?
Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. That was a gallant discussion from Mr. O'Connor regarding the history and whatnot of what happened. But what he forgot to mention was why 9 people held up the appraisal for the Keisha Farm. The town paid appraisal of the Keisha Farm from the public prior to the referendum. Don't forget, we met on September 4th of 2018. There was time for them to do it. And there were 9 people, including our public officials, our paid help. Well, Mary Breton, Matthew Forrest, Mr. Lesser, Mr. Spinella, Tony Martino, you, Mr. Roll, Andy Bello, and Miss Latina, and I believe Mr. Hurley. Those were 9 people, 9 citizens on the board, on the council at that time, who refused to show an appraisal of the farm to the public. As a matter of fact, the referendum was on November, 6th. I didn't get a copy till 10 months later, and it was just emailed to me. Here it is. Great town, I'll tell you. And the manager at that time, Mr. whatever his name was, Gary Evans, did an absolute terrible job in representing the town of Wethersfield. But also, Mr. O'Connor, you failed to mention in your discussion the paragraph, the sentence that said, this property cannot legally be sold or subdivided for private development purposes per bond council. You, Mr. Pentelo, and Mr. Hill were the authors of this. You have yet to explain to the public anything about this. Yeah. Don't you think you owe us something? Of course not. You came out like a golden goose out of this whole COVID money stuff. You get your $1.5 million. You get all kinds of stuff for sports. You get, if you look down the list, PAL gets money. There's sports all over the place. Yet when I read in several weeks ago the minutes, some woman was complaining about the roofs leaking at some schools, and to apply some money for that. Yet that's not done. And that's really where that COVID money should have gone. It should have gone to fix some roofs on some of our buildings, but not one of you stood up for the roofs. You're going to rely on a referendum at some point out in the future that's very mystical if it's going to pass. Because let's face it, you have hammered 5,284 people who voted no to buy that Keisha farm. They said no. You don't even consider them as an issue. But they're going to come out and vote on those referendums, and they're going to vote no, because they are mad as hell, just like myself. And there's more people who have heard more about this that are going to come out and kill it. And what are we going to say? Go see that last town council. They'll help you out. That's what I'm going to say right from up here and in my writings. Go to this council. Go to Mr. O'Connor. He got X amount of dollars. Go to the guy over here that got, what's that game? There's different games that was being put down there at Mill Woods. The paddle thing, whatever it's called. Go see him. Go see Forrest. Go see Will. Go see Payroll. He was a big shot. He's got plenty of money. He'll know how to find money. Well, yeah, here's the thing. You had $7.5 million. The school had $2.5 million. That's $10 million. The two of you could have joined up and done some roofs and fixed the schools and made them safe. You didn't do it. You said, to heck with it. We're going to screw the taxpayers and pass some referendums. And the taxpayers are going to say, no, Mayor. And we're going to come back to this council. We're going to come back to this council and blame this council, and it's deserving. And this idea of putting gravel across farmland,
your 5 minutes are up.
Joke. You should, again, put
Mr.
that
Young.
over there, and it's good exercise for these people to walk. Thank you very much.
I'll give you a little bit of advice for the next council, Mr. Young. When you address the people of the public, you address the public. Do not address the individual councils. Going forward in your next council, while you're up there, in your public comment, address the public.
Address you.
The public.
You.
Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.